Nane! Hello and welcome to another video about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'm here to present you with unfathomable amounts of information about what everyone that has ever existed is wondering about. Critical strike, critical damage versus critical avoidance. What is it? Well, let's take a look at that. Now, first of all, I want to show you the difference between the person who uses critical damage and the person that uses critical avoidance. And I will show you which one you want to be and which one you want to avoid, and then we will get into the reasons and stuff, I guess, about the actual difference between the stats. Now, first, let me show you the chat. You know what? This is not a good pointer. First, we have the Chad attacker. As you can clearly see, this is a perfect example of an excellent attacker in Galaxy of Heroes. No one other than Darth Maul. Now, if you look at his horns here, he has horns to assert his dominance. Alright? He also has a painted face which frightens his defenders. Alright? He isn't to be thought of as a coward. He wants to assert to frighten the defenders, so it's even easier for him to kill his enemies. He also only uses 6 crit damage mods. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, that doesn't make a full set. It doesn't matter because it's extra damage. As long as it says crit damage, it is doing crit damage. Correct. He can survive being cut in half. This isn't the one that was cut in half, but eventually he is, and he's still alive. That's pretty impressive. Defender can't do that. As you can see, his footwork is very precise. After all the attacking and such like that, he has developed perfect footwork to always be on top of his opponent. He has a double-bladed lightsaber for maximum cutting power, and he even reduces cooldowns by attacking enemies. Does this Maul do it? Yes. He also has a perfectly straight back. Perfect. It is a 90-degree angle. He has a perfectly straight back, a perfect 90-degree angle from that offensive stance that he must keep. Alright? And he also uses speed arrows to maximize the number of attacks he can put out. The more attacks you have, the more you utilize crit damage, and this is exactly what he does. Now, let's take a look at exactly what you don't want to be. And that is, of course, none other than the Virgin Defender. You see, he's very insecure about his haircut, so he doesn't scare anyone. He doesn't want it to scare anyone, and he doesn't. And it doesn't. As you can see, his head is drooping because he is insecure about it. He also has a scar on his face from a nobody. Yes, a nobody. Alright? How do you think that's going to look against his enemies? Oh, you lost to somebody that doesn't even know what a lightsaber is? That's right. It's not going to go very well. But shut up. It was a bad movie. Stop theorizing about why. Alright, it doesn't matter. Oh, he uses a light sword instead of an actual lightsaber? This is Star Wars, not space. This is Star Wars, not Lord of the Rings, so learn what universe you're in and use a proper weapon. He's never lost any limbs, alright, so what does that say for him? Not very much. He doesn't know how to properly stand due to that lack of movement. You know, he's always standing in one position defending. Pointless, alright? He doesn't know what to do. He uses defense and health mod sets. Those aren't even useful. The only thing that's useful are things that boost your offense. He also has a slouch back due to constantly turtle forming and able to avoid threats and attacks. Pathetic. And he uses crit avoidance arrows so he doesn't get hit as often and as hard. But he still gets hit, something the attacker never does. As you can clearly see, the Chad can easily pen. So for you slower ones out there, let's start with the very basics. Of course, it doesn't get much more difficult. Everything is quite basic when it comes to crit damage and critical avoidance, but I'm still going to go over it just so you're not very confused. So crit damage, of course, increases the damage of your critical strikes. So every time you critically strike, you do more damage. Now, without any bonus crit damage, your attacks do 150% damage as opposed to 100. 2000 becomes 3500 damage a hit. Of course, we're not including defense or whatever that makes you do less damage. That don't worry about that. But that affects the amount of damage you do. But this is just base stats. All right, so 150% damage. It's pretty decent, but with critical damage mods, you can only go up. There is no. What's the greatest thing about being at rock bottom? There's only one other way to go, and that's up. Except there is another way, and that is using defense sets. So the more crit damage you have, the more damage you do. 200% crit damage will help you deal 4,000 damage as opposed to 2,000 damage, which no critical strike. Also, having more offense helps you increase the damage, but in some other, probably highly mathematical way, but it's good. Here is fancy mathematical equation for figuring out how much damage you do. Enjoy. It's exactly what I said, except in mathematical terms. Thank you. Yeah. What about critical avoidance? Critical avoidance does nothing other than help you avoid critical chance. It does not reduce the damage of critical strikes. Now, that may not be a common misconception, but it was for me, so I want to make sure that you have the same understanding. And knowing that it is literally impossible for you to be anywhere near my level of intelligence, I wanted to make sure that you understand that it does not reduce the damage of crits. It rather helps you avoid critical hits. So, let's take an example. The enemy has 50% critical damage. You have 50% critical avoidance. Your enemy can now never critically strike you. It is impossible, unless they have more crit damage. So, if they have 110% crit, no. If they have 150% critical chance, and you only have 50% critical avoidance, they will critically strike you every single time. The only time that you can for sure make sure that you never get critically striked, not worrying about RNG, is when you have critical avoidance buff, which is, I think 100% you'll never be critically hit, right? So that is the only way that you can assure that you will never be critically struck. So what is better? Critical damage or critical avoidance? Well, simple answer is critical damage. And obviously the reasons for that is just because, it's offensive and not defense. But there are also scientific reasons for that. Number one, it's more reliable. Then this is the main reason, but there's others. It is more reliable than critical avoidance. So long as you have a decent amount of crit chance, you will always utilize that crit damage. And depending on your team and your setup and who you're using, chances are you have a very high amount of critical chance. Perhaps even more than 100%, such as under a wedge lead, if I am not mistaken. Which means every single hit you will be using critical damage. But this is not the case with critical avoidance. You see, it is much more RNG worthy. You don't necessarily know the amount of crit damage they have next to your critical avoidance. And it comes down to, if they have 100% critical chance and you have a 50% critical avoidance, well, then it's a 50-50 chance. And then you are literally taunting RNGs. And that will never go well for you, alright? Let's not play with RNG. You want to make sure that you're playing with things set in stone so that you are certain you will be able to win. Also, the best way to get critical avoidance, aside from buffs and such, which honestly, not a lot of characters have buffs or uniques that give them more critical avoidance. The best way to get it would be through the arrow, which would mean you are then giving up the speed arrow, which is never good because speed is key remember that, or else you will not do well. Remember, speed is always the top priority, like 90% of the time, and all the time. And let's be real. Literally anything for extra tankiness is useless. It is literally useless. All you ever need to do is damage. So, don't run the Phase 3 Chex Mix Heroic Sith Triumph Raid team in the Sith Raid. Yes, you can run it there, but run it in Arena 2, because that is how you will climb to the top. Thank you.